We are now on the record. The time is 2:31 Pacific time.
Okay. Miss Batten, do you recall filling out questions the plaintiff sent you called form interrogatories?
And I'm sorry, John, it's just vague when you say filling out.
Do you recall responding to questions sent by the plaintiff regarding how the accident happened?
No.
Okay. I'm going to read to you your response to form interrogatory 20.8, asking you what happened in the collision, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this description. Responding party, that's you, was driving in the number 1 lane. Her eyes got watery, and then her left contact lens traveled up to and under her left eyelid, negatively impacting her ability to see. Is that your understanding of what happened in the collision?
My understanding that it was my right eye.
Other than the difference between right and left eye, is that your understanding of what happened in the collision?
Yes.
When you had an inability to see, is it fair to say that you could not see 100 feet in front of you?
Can you rephrase your question to be more simple?
Sure. When your eye got watery and your right contact lens traveled up to and under your right eyelid, could you see 100 feet in front of you?
I would be guessing, so I don't feel comfortable answering that question. The way you're phrasing it.
What's your best estimate as to how far you could see in front of you once that contact lens went up your right eye and your left eye became watery?
I would be providing an estimate, and I'm unable to provide an accurate number to reflect what you're asking.
Well, you just said you'd be able to provide an estimate. Do you have any estimate as to how far you could see in front of you immediately after that contact lens going up your right eye?
I cannot provide a frame of estimate.
Are you aware of any safety rules that say that you should not drive faster than 30 miles per hour if you cannot see 100 feet in front of you?
Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah, can we read it back, please?
Are you aware of any safety rules that say that you should not drive faster than 30 miles per hour if you cannot see 100 feet in front of you?
Can you qualify what you refer to as being aware?
Do you know about the safety rule that says if you can't see 100 feet in front of you, you should not be driving faster than 30 miles per hour?
Have you ever heard of any safety rule like that before?
No, I haven't heard any safety rule, just a general.
Do you agree that it puts drivers at danger when you're driving at a speed in which you cannot see in front of you?
Objection, instruct the witness not to answer and not calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence.
You have no estimate as to how fast you were going at the time of the collision. Is that correct?
That is correct. I have no estimate.
And you have no recollection of telling the officer at the scene of the collision that you were traveling approximately 80 miles per hour before braking.
I
Is that
don't,
true?
that is true. I don't have any recollection of speaking to an officer.
Did you lose consciousness following the collision?
I did not lose consciousness, but I was in a state of shock.
Did you hit your head in the collision?
No, I did not hit my head.
Did you sustain a concussion in the collision?
I did not sustain a concussion in the collision.
Do you have amnesia of what happened in the collision due to any head injury?
I just object to the extent it calls for an expert opinion. You can answer if you know.
I am unable to say that I had amnesia regarding the accident and the events that followed.
So you have some recollection of the accident and what followed.
I have minimal recollection of the events that followed.
Okay. I'd like to introduce as exhibit number 3.
John, I don't think I have exhibit 1 as the traffic collision report. I don't have an exhibit 2.
It was the form interrogatory responses.
Okay, just so you know, I don't think you introduced them on the record. I could be wrong.
I would like to show you, can you see that verification in front of you?
Yes,
Did you sign under penalty of perjury a document stating that you have read the foregoing responses to Defendant Liliana Battin's? Let me start that again. Do you recall signing a document under penalty of perjury stating, I have read the foregoing responses to Defendant Liliana Battin to form interrogatories propounded by plaintiff Patricia Kane and responses to Defendant Liliana Battin to requests for admissions propounded by plaintiff Patricia Kane and know their contents. The matters stated in the foregoing documents are true of my own knowledge, except as to those matters which are stated on information and belief, and as to those matters, I believe them to be true.
I did. I do recall signing this document.
Okay. And the information that you provided was true to the best of your knowledge.
The information was true to the best of my knowledge.
And in those responses, and I'll bring them back up and introduce these as exhibit 2. Can you see them on the screen?
Can you make it bigger, John?
Sure. Can you see your responses to form interrogatories propounded by plaintiff Patricia Kane?
Yeah,
I'm going to flip down to page 22. And we're going to go over your response to form interrogatory number 20.8. Responding party was driving in the number 1 lane. Her eyes got watery, and then her left contact lens traveled up to and under her left eyelid, negatively impacting her ability to see. Now, I understand that it was your right eye that the contact lens went up to. My question to you is, you didn't put anything in that response about attempting to pull over once you realized that you had a contact going up your right eye and you couldn't see. Isn't that true?
Well, you know, it's her attorney that provides the response, and we admit that
Please no speaking objections. If you want to
the document speaks for
state
itself.
an objection, please do, but don't just start talking,
The
counsel.
document speaks.
It's
for
improper, and I think you should know that.
John, the document speaks for itself, and today.
Duly noted. Can you answer my question, Miss Batten? You
Yeah.
didn't put anything in your response about trying to pull over once you couldn't see. Isn't that true?
That is true because I don't recall me pulling over. So I'm unable to provide that response.
In fact, you didn't try to pull over once you couldn't see. Isn't that the truth?
I don't recall.
You didn't tell the officer at the time of the collision that you attempted to pull over once you couldn't see. Isn't that true?
I don't recall me speaking to an officer.
Are you saying that it didn't happen?
Objection argumentative.
If a police officer testifies in your trial under penalty of perjury that he took accurate notes of the statement you gave, are you going to dispute that?
Objection vague.
Your question was vague.
Are you going to dispute the accuracy of the statement attributed to you by the police officer that investigated this collision?
Objection vague. What statement? Which statement?
I'll read it. Party number 1, Batten, related the following. She was driving her car westbound on SR 37 east of Lakeville Highway in the number 1 lane at approximately 80 miles per hour. She yawned and her eyes watered. She saw cars stepping ahead and she cleared her eyes. She tried to step on the brakes, but she could not stop in time and she hit the back of the other car. Are you going to dispute the accuracy of that statement?
Objection compound. You need to break it down.
Are you going to dispute the accuracy of the statement I just read to you?
And I'll object compound. You need to break it down, John. There's like 4 or 5 different statements in there, some of which you may agree with, some of which you may disagree with.
Do you disagree with any of the statements attributed to you that I just read from the police report?
And she doesn't have the police report in front of her, and she's already told you, she denies that she told the officer she was going 80 miles per hour.
Please don't testify for her.
You're asking her if a series of statements attributed to her are accurate, or if she's going to dispute them. That's not a fair question, John.
It is a fair question.
It's
And
not.
please stop your speaking objections. I'm going to have to suspend this deposition real quick and get a protective order from the judge telling you not to make speaking objections. It's
If
pretty
your-
routine to not do that, and it's a matter of common courtesy,
It's
Ms. Flynn.
if your
Okay.
questions are proper, then I don't feel the need to give a speaking objection, but I'm trying to explain to you why I'm objecting to a question.
Please stop. Ms. Batten, I'm going to break this down sentence by sentence and ask if you disagree with the statement attributed to you by the police officer that responded to the scene of this collision. Okay? And you understand that when you're giving a statement to a police officer at the scene of the collision, it's important to be truthful and accurate. True?
I understand that, but I don't recall speaking to an officer.
I appreciate that, but I'm going to ask you if you dispute the accuracy of any of these statements the officer is attributing to you at the time of the collision. Statement number 1. She was driving her car westbound on SR 37 east of Lakeville Highway in the number 1 lane at approximately 80 miles per hour. Do you dispute making that statement to the officer following this collision?
I dispute the statement of which he recorded that I traveled 80 miles per hour.
Thank you. Do you dispute this statement? She yawned and her eyes watered. Do you dispute making that statement to the police officer that responded to the scene of this collision on July 27th, 2021?
May I ask a question?
You know, actually, I'm the one who asked questions here, and the question pending is, do you dispute making that statement? She yawned and her eyes watered to responding officer M. Lee on July 27, 2021 at the scene of this collision.
So if the question's not clear to you, you shouldn't answer it, and you can ask him for clarification. So if you've got a question about his question,
I have a question about your question.
Okay, what is it, Ms. Batten?
The statement she yawned and her eyes watered is not a statement, but rather a description of me. So
I'm just asking you, do you deny saying that to the police officer, that you yawned and your eyes watered?
I don't recall saying anything to the police officer.
Okay, but you don't dispute that you said that, you just don't recall, true?
True. I don't recall me speaking to any law enforcement officer. Therefore, I cannot dispute this statement because I don't recall.
Do you dispute saying the statement, she saw cars stopping ahead when she cleared her eyes?
I don't recall making this statement. Therefore, I cannot dispute it.
Do you dispute telling the officer she tried to step on the brakes, but she could not stop in time, and she hit the back of the other car?
I do not recall me giving this statement to an officer, therefore I cannot dispute it.
Do you dispute making the statement she was driving her car westbound on SR 37 east of Lakeville Highway in the #1 lane at approximately 80 miles per hour?
I'm gonna object to the extent it's been asked and answered. Why are you asking her again, John?
I'm asking her if she disputes it.
You can answer.
I don't dispute me driving on SR 37, but I cannot recall which lane of which I was driving in, therefore I cannot dispute it.
Okay. Oops. Going to mark and introduce Exhibit 4, photograph of the rear of a Volkswagen Touareg silver. Does this vehicle look familiar to you?
No, it does not look familiar to me.
Do you recognize this as the Volkswagen
I don't recall.
Touareg that you struck on July 27, 2021?
I don't recall the model or type of car.
Does looking at this photograph refresh your recollection that this is the vehicle you struck on July 27, 2021?
No, it does not refresh my memory.
Going to mark and introduce exhibit number 5. Do you recognize the vehicle being shown in exhibit 5 on the screen in front of you?
Yes,
Whose vehicle is that?
that is my vehicle.
Is that the vehicle that you were driving on July 27th, 2021?
Yes,
Does that photograph look like the scene of the collision on July 27, 2021?
I don't recall the exact environment of the scene of the accident.
But does that photograph look roughly like the scene of the collision to you?
Yes,
Do you see a police officer there?
I do see a police officer in the photograph.
Is that the officer that you spoke with?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence. She's already told you she doesn't recall speaking to a police officer at the scene.
Does
don't-
that officer look like an individual who asked you questions at the scene of the collision?
I don't recall an officer that I was speaking to or any officer that I was speaking to.
Looking at a photograph of the investigating officer, does that refresh your recollection as to the individual who asked you questions on July 27,
Objection,
2021?
objection assumes facts not in evidence, calls for speculation.
Do I still answer?
Can you repeat the question, John?
Sure. Does looking at this photograph refresh your recollection that a police officer asked you questions on July 27, 2021?
No, it does not refresh my recollection.
You don't recognize that police officer at all?
No, I do not recognize that police officer.
Okay. Were you transported in an ambulance from the scene of the collision?
Yes, I was transported in an ambulance.
Did you make statements to the ambulance personnel?
Can I ask more clarification on the statements that you're referring to?
Sure, I'm just asking if you made any statements to the ambulance personnel that came and took you from the scene of the collision to, it looks like, Petaluma Valley Hospital.
I don't recall me making statements to EMS personnel.
You don't recall telling them what had happened so that they can treat and assist you?
I don't recall any conversation of between me and EMS personnel.
Can you describe the force of the impact of this collision in your own words?
Blunt,
Can you describe the sounds of the impact in your own words?
loud,
In terms of minor, moderate, or severe, how did the force of the impact feel according to you?
moderately severe.
Was your vehicle determined a total loss following this collision, or was it repaired?
It was a total loss.
Were there any smells that you recall following the impact?
No,
Did you call 911 following the impact?
no,
Did you ever see your vehicle following it being towed from the scene?
no,
In hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently that day to avoid the collision?
no,
You wouldn't have pulled off to the side of the road once you couldn't see?
I'm confused on how to answer your question.
How about truthfully and accurately?
John, that's argumentative. If you want her to ask why she responded the way that she did, you're welcome to do that.
Well, I can't instruct you how to answer a question other than to tell the truth.
And if you don't understand his question, ask him to repeat it or rephrase it, because you're not required to answer a question that's not clear to you.
Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah, in hindsight, to avoid this collision, would you have pulled off to the side of the road? Once you couldn't see due to,
Objection assumes that if she'd pulled to the.
I
side of
haven't
the
finished
road-
my question, counsel. I'll repeat it and I'll attempt to finish it. In hindsight, to avoid this collision, once your contact lenses obstructed your vision, would you have slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road and fixed your contact lenses so that you could see where you were going in an effort to avoid a collision with a car in front of you?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence, that she had time to pull to the side of the road. And also assumes that if she had pulled to the side of the road, she would have avoided a collision.
Okay, you're gonna instruct her not to answer, you're gonna let her answer?
If you want her to tell you how she responded and why she responded the way that she did, then you should ask her that question. She's already
Yep.
told she didn't pull over. to the
Counsel,
side of the
I want
road.
her to answer my question. Can you please read it back, Madam Court Reporter? With all the objections duly noted.
In hindsight, to avoid this collision, once your contact lenses obstructed your vision, would you have slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road and fixed your contact lenses so that you could see where you were going in an effort to avoid a collision with a car in front of you?
I'm still struggling to understand your question based on the premise that I had enough time to assumably pull over to the side.
Okay, but you couldn't tell me when, how far before the collision you couldn't see, right?
Objection big.
How much time before the collision you were unable to see? You weren't able to tell me that. Or can you tell me that?
I am unable to tell you that.
So you don't know how much time it was that you couldn't see and you continued driving, correct?
Can you rephrase your question?
You don't have a specific recollection of how long you were unable to see due to contacts in your eyes and watering eyes, yet you continued to drive. Isn't that true?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence, misstates the witness's testimony.
You can answer, or you could tell me how long it was that you were unable to see due to your contact lenses and you continued to drive on the highway.
Objection assumes facts not in evidence. And she's already told you she doesn't have a specific recollection of how many seconds passed in an accident that happened about 3 years ago, John.
Well, then why don't she just say that? Isn't it true that you can't tell me how long you couldn't see and yet continued to drive on the highway?
Well, that assumes that she continued to drive once she was unable to see. If you would again allow her to explain what she did when she was unable to see, that she ended up hitting her brakes, then you would understand why this question is confusing to her and why she can't answer.
Counsel,
the
should I
way
put
that
you
it's
under
true.
oath so that you could testify for your witness?
You're not,
Please
John,
stop
you're
your
not being
speaking
fair.
objections. Please stop.
Why
I'm
don't
so
you-
close to getting a protective order.
John, go
Just
ahead,
Due
because
to
you're
your
not.
lack of professionalism is just astounding.
John, your questions are unclear. They assume facts not in evidence, and you're not letting the witness tell you what happened and how she responded and why. So you are more than welcome to suspend the deposition and file a motion if you like. But if you want to know the truth, instead of just getting answers to questions that assume facts and evidence, then ask different questions.
What did you do to avoid the collision once you couldn't see?
I had put my foot on the brakes.
When was it in relation to the impact that you realized you could not see?
Are you referring to time?
Yes, ma'am.
To the seconds or minutes before I made contact with your client, and the minute I couldn't see, I had put my foot on the brake.
So it's your testimony that there was 1 minute where you couldn't see
I-
prior to the impact.
I'm making reference to a previous statement that I said that you asked me.
Can you narrow it down to any more specific time frame other than a second to a minute that you couldn't see?
I'm unable to provide that because I would be guessing.
Okay. So your best testimony is that somewhere between a second and a minute you could not see prior to this impact.
Correct, that is my best testimony.
Following this impact, did you check on the plaintiff and ask if she was okay?
I don't recall me speaking to your plaintiff at all.
Okay. Did you suffer any injuries in this collision?
Minor injuries.
Have you had medical treatment?
At the time, on the day of the accident, yes.
Any follow-up treatment?
No.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Before we go off the record, I'd like to take any transcript orders, video orders, Ms. Flynn.
Yes, please. And we'd like a
Uh,
copy of the transcript and the video.
Okay. And Ms. Flynn, can you just type in your information, your email into the chat so I can get you that order?
Right. All right, let's see. And it should be on the proof of service for the form interrogatories. What do you want? You just want my work email?
Yes, your work email and your firm name if you have that as well. Would you like a standard copy or text to video sync?
A standard copy is fine.
Sure.
Here. Oh, damn. Did I did I just totally delete it? Love a duck. Okay. There we go.
So, okay. This concludes the volume of the deposition of Liliana Batten in the matter of Conant versus Batten. We are now off the record. The time is 3:08 Pacific time.
I don't know either, but